Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to introduce our presentation on Ruqya, led by Sheikha Shafalia Younis. Today's session is part of the Continuous Learning Development Program. We'll be exploring the principles and practices of Ruqya, and I'll guide you through what you need to know. So, let's get started and make this a valuable learning experience for all of us. Welcome to this part of our presentation on how to do Ruqya on oneself. Today, I want to focus on the importance of daily Ruqya. Practicing this daily can be a powerful way to protect yourself spiritually and to maintain your inner peace. It's about making it a regular part of your routine, almost like a spiritual hygiene. By doing so, you're consistently seeking Allah's protection and blessings. Remember, consistency is key here. The more you incorporate it into your daily life, the stronger your spiritual shield becomes. This practice connects directly to our overall theme of continuous learning and self-improvement in faith. So, let's understand that daily Ruqya is not just a ritual, but a meaningful act of devotion that can bring profound benefits if done with sincerity and regularity. Whenever the Prophet, letter FDFA, prepared for sleep, he had a specific method of protection that he followed. He would cup his hands together, almost like forming a small bowl with his palms, and then recite 3 important chapters from the Quran: Surat al-Ikhlas, Surat al-Falaq, and Surat an-Nas. After reciting these, he would blow over his hands gently, which is a way of sending the blessings and protection from these surahs. Then, he would rub his hands over parts of his body that he was able to reach, starting with his head, his face, and the front of his body. This act of rubbing is a symbolic way of seeking Allah's protection, as if to ward off any harm or evil that might be around him. He would do this entire process 3 times each night. This practice, narrated in Sahih Bukhari, shows us how the Prophet, letter FDFA, constantly sought Allah's protection through supplication and Quranic recitation before sleep. It highlights an important aspect of spiritual protection that we can incorporate into our own routines to seek Allah's safety and blessings. On this slide, we see the importance of seeking protection through specific Quranic recitations and hadith. The verses from Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, and An-Nas are emphasized here. These chapters are often called the protection surahs because their recitation is believed to safeguard us from various harms. The key point is that reciting these 3 chapters 3 times in the morning and evening is said to provide sufficient protection against everything that might threaten us. This practice is a simple yet powerful way to seek Allah's help and protection throughout our daily routine. Additionally, the hadith mentioned here, reported by Abu Dawud and At-Tirmidhi, supports this practice. It shows that these recitations are not just recommended, but are considered effective means of safeguarding ourselves. The references to scholars like Al-Albani affirm the authenticity of this advice. Connecting this to our overall theme, it highlights the importance of consistent invocation and reliance on Allah's words and the Sunnah for our protection. It's a reminder that spiritual safeguarding is accessible and easy to incorporate into our daily lives, reinforcing the idea that protection is ultimately in Allah's hands, but we must actively seek it through these prescribed acts. Whenever Allah's messenger, peace be upon him, went to bed, he would blow on his hands while reciting the Mawidhat, which includes Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas, and then pass his hands over his body. This practice highlights the importance of seeking protection through these specific supplications before sleep. Similarly, when he was sick, he would recite these same surahs and blow his breath over his body to seek healing and protection. And when he was seriously ill, I would also recite these surahs and gently rub his hands over his body, hoping for the blessings and healing they bring. These narrations from Bukhari remind us of the powerful role of these surahs in our daily lives, especially in times of vulnerability or illness. They show how the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used these supplications not just for himself, but also as a means to seek Allah's protection and mercy. Connecting this to our theme, it emphasizes the importance of turning to Allah through His words, especially during moments of need, and trusting in their spiritual and healing benefits. Now, let's look at how the Mawidatan, which includes Surah Al-Falaq and An-Nas, functions as a form of spiritual protection. The key idea here is that these surahs are used to unite the knots of a charm through recitation. Essentially, we recite the verses one by one from each surah, creating a powerful spiritual connection. This method is rooted in the tradition recorded in Bukhari, emphasizing its authenticity and significance. The process involves carefully reciting each verse, which helps to reinforce the protective intent and harness the divine words for safeguarding oneself. This approach highlights the importance of intentional recitation and the spiritual efficacy of these surahs. Overall, it's about integrating these powerful verses into our daily practice to seek protection and divine help. In this slide, we see the beautiful supplication narrated from Anas bin Malik, who quotes the Prophet Muhammad SAW. The Prophet had certain supplications that he never neglected, and one of the most well-known is this dua. He used to say, Allahumma innai udhu bika minal hami, wal hazani, wal ajzi, wal kazali, wal bukli, wal jubni, wad dani, wa galabatar rijal. This translates to, O Allah, I seek refuge with you from worry, grief, incapacity, laziness, miserliness, cowardice, debt, and being overpowered by others. What's really important here is to understand that these are common struggles that many of us face: anxiety, stress, financial worries, or feeling overwhelmed. The Prophet's words show us that turning to Allah in these moments is the best way to seek relief. It reminds us that supplication is a powerful tool to find comfort and support in times of difficulty. This dua encompasses many of the emotional and practical challenges we encounter, and it highlights the importance of turning to Allah with humility and reliance. Connecting this to our overall theme, it emphasizes that spiritual practices like dua can help us manage anxiety and stress, providing a sense of peace and trust in Allah's mercy and power. Now, as we look at this slide, I want to emphasize the importance of consistent remembrance, especially in the evenings. The slide suggests that reading this particular supplication 3 times in the evening can serve as a protection against any stings, which can be understood both literally and figuratively. What's key here is the notion of seeking protection through prayer and remembrance of Allah. The phrase, read 3x in the evening, and you will be protected from any stings, highlights a simple yet powerful practice that can help safeguard us from harm. The supplication itself, A'udhu by kalimati, lahit tamati min shari ma kalak, means seeking refuge in Allah's perfect words from the evil of what He has created. It's a beautiful reminder that turning to Allah with sincerity can shield us from various harms, including those unexpected or unseen. And as we connect this to our overall theme of continuous learning and reliance on divine guidance, it underscores the importance of regular remembrance and trust in Allah's protection. Small acts of devotion like this can have profound effects on our safety and well-being. When you suffer from some ailment, the key is to remember the proper way to seek relief through supplication. First, you should place your hand on the area where you are feeling pain or discomfort. This act of placing your hand is a sign of seeking help and connection. Then say aloud, In the name of Allah, I seek refuge in Allah's might and power from the evil of this pain I feel. Or in Arabic, Bismillah, A'udhu bi izzatillahi wa qudratihi min shari ma ajidu min wajri makran hadha. After saying this, lift your hand away from the area and repeat the phrase an odd number of times. This practice is rooted in the idea that turning to Allah with sincere supplication and trust can help alleviate suffering. It's important to note that this is a spiritual approach that complements medical treatment, emphasizing reliance on Allah's power. Remember, this method encourages us to stay mentally and spiritually connected when facing physical hardships, and it aligns with the overall theme of seeking holistic well-being through both faith and action. Now, when you're suffering from an ailment or pain, the first step is to identify exactly where you feel the discomfort in your body. Once you've done that, place your hand on that specific area. This act helps to focus your attention and connect physically with the pain. Then, say Bismillah in the name of Allah 3 times. This invokes Allah's name and reminds us that seeking His help is the first step in seeking relief. After that, say 7 times A'udhu billahi wa qudratihi min shari ma ajidu wa yuhidhuru, which means I seek refuge with Allah and His power from the evil I find, and that I fear. This is a powerful supplication to ask Allah to protect us from any harm or worsening of the condition. Remember, these steps are not just about physical remedies. They also bring spiritual reassurance and trust in Allah's mercy and power. Connecting this practice to our overall theme, it emphasizes the importance of turning to Allah in times of difficulty, trusting that He is the ultimate healer and protector. Now, on slide 11, we see a beautiful example from the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, Piba. It shows how he would perform a form of Ruqya, or spiritual healing, for some of his wives. He would pass his right hand over the affected area and say a supplication. "O Allah, the Lord of the people, remove the trouble and heal the patient, for you are the healer. No healing is of any avail but yours, healing that will leave behind no ailment." This highlights the importance of turning to Allah for healing, acknowledging that all healing ultimately comes from Him. The phrase, Adhibul Basa, Washfi, Antash Shafi, La Shifa La Shifyuka, Shifan La Yugaduru Sakaman, is a powerful supplication asking Allah to remove pain, cure sickness, because only you, O Allah, are the true healer. It emphasizes that healing through spiritual means is not just about physical recovery, but also about trusting in Allah's mercy and power. This approach is central to our overall theme of spiritual healing and reliance on divine intervention for health and well-being. Let's take a closer look at this important narration. In this slide, we see a narration from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, regarding Ruqya for the sick. The story is narrated by Abbas, who tells us that the Prophet visited a Bedouin Arab when he was ill. When he entered, he would typically say, "No harm will come. It is a purification if God will." Notice how the Prophet repeated these reassuring words, emphasizing trust in God's plan. The Bedouin responded by saying that the illness was actually a fever boiling inside the old man, and that it might lead to his death. In response, the Prophet simply said, "Very well then." This interaction highlights a few key points. First, it shows us the importance of positive supplication and trust in God's mercy during illness. Second, it illustrates the Prophet's approach, acknowledging the reality but encouraging hope and reliance on God's will. The narration is transmitted by Bukhari, which adds authenticity and importance to this teaching. Finally, the phrase, La Baza letter 1E60, Hu Macron Run Insha'Allah, meaning, no harm, it is a purification, if God wills, encapsulates the essence of turning to Allah with hope and patience during sickness. This connects back to our overall theme of healing through faith and trust in God's wisdom. Let's take a moment to reflect on this powerful supplication. It begins with addressing the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, acknowledging his illness. The response is simple, yes, showing acceptance and compassion. The key part is the invocation, Bismillahi Arkika, which means, in the name of Allah, I perform Ruqya for you. This phrase emphasizes the importance of relying on Allah's name and power when seeking healing. The supplication continues to ask for protection from all harm, be it from the evil of any soul, envious eyes, or any form of negativity. It's a comprehensive plea, highlighting that harm can come from various sources, but with Allah's help, healing and protection are possible. The phrase, may Allah heal you, underscores the belief that healing ultimately comes from Allah alone. And the repetition of Bismillahi Arkika reinforces the spiritual connection and trust in Allah's mercy and power. This particular dua is rooted in Sunnah, as cited from Ibn Majah, and it teaches us that whenever we face harm, whether physical, spiritual, or emotional, we should turn to Allah with sincerity and trust. Overall, this slide reminds us of the importance of seeking Allah's aid through the proper means, and it highlights that all types of harm can be addressed through sincere supplication and faith. Let's take a closer look at the practice of visiting sick people, as highlighted in this hadith. The Prophet, may Allah bless him and grant him peace, used to visit those who were unwell. When he did, he would sit quietly by their head and then make a special supplication 7 times. He would say, I ask Allah the Immense, the Lord of the immense throne, to cure you. This demonstrates the importance of supplication and asking Allah for healing during times of illness. Notice that if the person's time for recovery hadn't come yet, they would often be cured of their pain. This shows the power of sincere dua and Allah's ability to heal. We should remember that visiting the sick isn't just about offering comfort. It's also a moment to invoke Allah's mercy and healing. The supplication mentioned here, Asalallaha, L a letter 1E93 I macron M, Araba, El Arshil a letter 1E93 I macron M I and Yashfiak, is a beautiful example of turning to Allah with humility and hope. Overall, this practice connects to our broader theme of compassion, caring for others, and trusting in Allah's power. Visiting the sick is a way to show love and concern, and it's also an act of worship that can bring immense reward. Tonight, I want to highlight an important practice for protection before we go to sleep. It's about reciting Ayatul Kursi, which is verse 255 from Surah Al-Baqarah. When we recite these powerful words before bed, it's like assigning a guardian from Allah for us through the night until the morning. This isn't just a simple recitation, it's a divine protection that Allah has promised. The practice is well documented, with a full account collected in Bukhari, Volume 4, emphasizing its significance. Essentially, by reciting Ayatul Kursi, we're seeking Allah's safeguarding against any harm or evil during our sleep. It's a beautiful way to entrust our safety to Allah's mercy and power. Connecting this to our overall theme of continuous learning and spiritual protection, it reminds us that small acts of worship and remembrance can have profound impacts. Incorporating this into our nightly routine strengthens our connection with Allah and provides peace of mind. So, I encourage everyone to make this a regular part of your evening. You'll find it brings both spiritual and worldly peace. Today, I want to highlight an important aspect of how the Prophet _FDFA performed Ruqya, which is a form of spiritual healing. According to a narration from Aisha, the Prophet _FDFA used to blow when performing Ruqya. This narration is recorded in Ibn Majah, Hadith 3528, and is classified as Sahih, meaning it is authentic. What this tells us is that blowing during Ruqya is a sunnah, a practice of the Prophet _FDFA. It's a beautiful example of how he combined spiritual supplication with a gentle physical act. The act of blowing here is not just physical, it's symbolic of transferring blessings and seeking Allah's mercy. This practice emphasizes the importance of sincerity and following the Prophet's example in our healing rituals. It also reminds us that Ruqya is not just about words or recitations, but also about the manner in which we perform it, maintaining humility and faith. So, as we reflect on this, remember that blowing during Ruqya is a recommended and authentic practice, rooted in the example of the Prophet _FDFA. It's a small but significant act that connects us to the prophetic tradition and enhances the spiritual impact of our healing efforts. Today, I want to talk about how to perform Ruqya on someone who is possessed. This is a critical aspect of spiritual healing and requires a careful, respectful approach. When we deal with exorcism, the main goal is to help the person regain their health and spiritual balance. First, it's important to understand that Ruqya involves reciting specific Quranic verses and supplications that are known to be effective against jinn and evil spirits. These should be done with sincerity and faith, always keeping in mind the protection and well-being of the person. Second, the environment should be calm and pure, creating a space where the person feels safe and supported. Lighting some clean candles or burning incense can help set the right atmosphere, but always ensure it's appropriate and respectful of the person's comfort. Third, as you perform the Ruqya, you should be confident and focused. Recite the verses slowly and clearly, making dua for Allah's help and protection. Remember, the power is ultimately from Allah, and our role is to facilitate his healing through these words. Lastly, it's essential to monitor the person's reactions and adjust accordingly. Sometimes, additional steps like consulting knowledgeable scholars or medical professionals may be necessary, especially if the possession is severe. Connecting this to our overall theme, effective exorcism combines faith, proper knowledge, and compassion. It's not just about reciting words, but about truly trusting in Allah's power and helping the person through sincere effort. Let's talk about some traditional practices for exorcism as outlined in this slide. One method involves blowing gently into a baby's mouth while saying Bismillah and declaring, "I am a slave of Allah, so get away, O enemy of Allah." This technique is rooted in the idea of invoking Allah's name and authority to ward off negative influences. Another approach involves striking the back vigorously while saying, "Get out, enemy of Allah, get out." After that, it's common to give water and make dua, or supplication, which aims to bring about healing and protection. These practices are based on narrations from Ahmed and Abu Dawud and emphasize active, physical, and spiritual efforts. Finally, reciting Surah Fatiha 3 times is also recommended. After each recitation, gather your saliva, then spit it out and blow on the affected person, both in the morning and evening. This act combines recitation, physical action, and dua, reflecting a holistic approach to spiritual protection. Throughout all these steps, the key concepts are invoking Allah's name, using specific words and actions, and combining physical and spiritual means. These practices connect to the overall theme of seeking Allah's help and protection through traditional, faith-based methods. Today, I want to touch on a concept that might seem a bit unconventional, but is actually quite important: weak narration for exorcism. Now, when we talk about weak narration, we're referring to storytelling or communication that lacks clarity, confidence, or engagement. In the context of exorcism, or any process that involves addressing negative energies or challenges, weak narration can undermine the effectiveness of our efforts. If our message isn't strong or clear, it becomes harder to inspire trust or motivate action. So, the key takeaway here is that strong, confident narration is essential, especially when tackling difficult topics. It helps us connect with our audience, convey our message convincingly, and ultimately support positive change. This idea ties back to the overall theme of continuous learning and development, the importance of honing our communication skills to be more impactful in every situation. Remember, how we tell our story can make all the difference. Now, let's talk about the practice of reciting specific surahs together for exorcism. This is a traditional method used in spiritual healing, and it involves a sequence of powerful verses from the Quran. We start with Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening chapter, which is often called the essence of the Quran. It sets a tone of seeking guidance and mercy. Then, we move on to 4 verses from Surah Al-Baqarah, specifically 2 from the middle of the chapter. These verses are believed to have protective properties and are frequently recited in such contexts. Next, we recite Ayat al-Kursi, the throne verse, which is renowned for its immense significance and protective power. Following that, we include the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, which also carry strong protective and supplicatory meanings. We then proceed to a verse from Surah Al-Imran, which emphasizes the importance of divine guidance. Afterward, a verse from Surah Al-Araf is recited, highlighting God's sovereignty and mercy. We include a verse from Surah Al-Mu'minun, emphasizing believers' qualities, and a verse from Surah Al-Jinn, which discusses the jinn and their acknowledgement of Allah's power. Moving forward, the first 10 verses of Surah Safat are recited. These describe the signs of Allah's creation and reinforce faith. Then, we include Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas, the 2 Mu'awwidatayn or protective chapters, which are often recited for seeking refuge from harm. It's important to note that these recitations are collected from various sources, such as Ibn Majah, but some scholars consider them weak, based on reports like that of Abu Janab al-Kalbi. The overall idea here is to harness the spiritual power of these verses collectively, aiming for protection and healing. This practice, while traditional, connects deeply with faith and reliance on divine mercy, fitting into the broader theme of seeking spiritual well-being through Quranic recitation. Thank you for joining me as we wrap up this presentation. On this final slide, we see the copyright 2024 by Continuous Learning Development, emphasizing our ongoing commitment to growth and understanding. Today, We've explored all types of authentic Ruqya, which is such an important aspect of spiritual and physical healing. Throughout this journey, the key takeaway is the diversity and authenticity involved in Ruqya practices. It's crucial to recognize that authentic Ruqya must adhere to sacred principles, using proven Quranic and Sunnah-based methods. By understanding the different types, we strengthen our awareness and confidence in applying or recommending them correctly. This aligns perfectly with our overall theme of continuous learning, encouraging us to seek authentic knowledge and practice it responsibly. Remember, the goal is to ensure spiritual safety and well-being through genuine and respectful methods. Thank you for your attention and dedication to this important subject. As we reach the final slide, I want to emphasize some important points about how to protect ourselves using Quranic verses and supplications. When you feel affected by the evil eye, it's recommended to recite Surah Al-Falaq. This surah serves as a powerful reminder for seeking refuge from harm caused by envy or malicious eyes. For general Ruqya, especially when dealing with various afflictions, you should recite both Mu'awwidhatayn, which are Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas. These two chapters are known to provide effective protection and healing. When performing Ruqya for someone else, it's beneficial to recite various du'as, asking Allah, Arabic Sin, Arabic Ba, Arabic Het, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Noon, Arabic Ha, Arabic Waw, Arabic Ta, Arabic Tain, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Khalif Maksura, to cure the sick and grant them complete recovery. If you find yourself affected by Satan or Shaitan's whispers, recite Ayat al-Kursi. This verse is a powerful shield, especially when dealing with harm caused by things like haid, which refers to irregular bleeding or other supernatural influences. In cases of possession, recite Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening chapter of the Quran, as it is a fundamental and healing chapter. And if you ever feel a strange presence or supernatural forces in your home, reading Surah Al-Baqarah can help. Playing it is optional, especially if reading it out loud is difficult, but listening to it can also bring peace and protection. To conclude, these are some of the key tools from the Quran and Sunnah that we should keep in mind for protection and healing. Remember, turning to Allah with sincerity and trust in Him is always the most important step in safeguarding ourselves and others.